my screen first, and then we'll go from there. All right, can everyone see my screen?
I
Give me a
can.
thumbs up. All right, thank you. So, welcome to our Black History Month presentation at Waystar. We would just like to thank you all for taking the time just to come and see what we have going on. We're really excited this year because we have a speaker who's going to talk about the 2025 theme for Black History Month, which is African Americans and labor. So I'm going to move to the next slide. Just a little reminder that Monica has joined Nicolene and I as the 2025 BIPOC leader. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us three and we will take care of any questions that you have. So I'd like to introduce, and my bar is in my way, so let me move it. So I want to introduce Dr. Reginald McDaniel Jr. He is a business and entrepreneurship educator at Louisville Shawnee High School. So he's going to lead the discussion today on the contributions to African Americans in the workforce and highlight their impact and legacy. So we'll send this out so you can read a little bit more about him. So Reginald, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure I unmute myself so we don't have those flashbacks to can you hear me? Can you hear me? Right. Okay, do me a favor real quick because I am a teacher. Just in the chat, just drop your name and where you're from real quick. I just want to make sure people are paying attention. What city doesn't matter, or your favorite color today. Thank you. I see 3 responses. I love this. This is okay. Oh, 7. This is we're already doing better than NTI. So this is great. This is great. Okay. So thank you everybody. I see Louisville, North Dakota. Okay, Atlanta, St. Louis. Okay, Toledo. Where? Okay, awesome. Litchfield, Kentucky. There we go. I'm done. All right, everybody can hear me okay? Just I can see some heads nodding. Thank you so much. You can see my screen. Oh, hmm? Was somebody saying something, or is that me echoing off of myself?
Make sure you're muted if you're not already.
Thank you. And if you have any questions at any point in time, please use the chat as a parking lot. I will get to them um, as best as I can. All right. So thank you again for the introduction and for inviting me to speak today. I want to kind of start with a question before I formally introduce myself. How many of you have faced a challenge at work where you felt undervalued, overlooked, or look you just had to work twice as hard to get the same recognition as someone else? And looking around the room, I can definitely, yep, I see it. Yes, throw them hands up. So looking around the like this space, I can tell that people can empathize with that question, right? And that's something that African Americans have experienced in the labor force for generations. And yet, despite these challenges, Black workers have still been able to thrive and reshape industries as well as advocate for rights and pioneered innovation. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the lessons that we can learn from the African American labor history. So, as as was said, my name is Dr. Reginald McDaniel Jr. I am the business management and entrepreneurship teacher here at the Academy at Shawnee. This school is located in West Louisville. I'm actually doing the meeting from here right now. But I have a passion for education, workforce equity, and economic empowerment. And that's really rooted from my experiences growing up. I worked I lived in a family where I didn't realize that my childhood was being floated by credit. So when I got older and got to the place where I had to kind of figure out navigating that financial structure myself, I was determined to make sure the people that came behind me would not have to experience those same sort of things that I experienced growing up. So my dissertation, because I am a business teacher, actually focused on the role that racial equity policies place basically the role that racial equity plays in career and technical education preparation. And it's very timely because in a time where diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are being stripped away, a lot of companies, it's not the time for us to hide from the conversation. If anything, we need to embrace it and get a deeper understanding of why these initiatives came into play. And I believe that today's presentation is going to help contextualize a bit of why we need to continue to fight for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So the purpose of today's session is really to take four major lessons from different parts of the history of of African American labor. First, we're going to start with the foundation of African American labor. Second, we're going to talk about the fight for workplace rights. Third, we're going to be talking about economic empowerment through skill mastery. And then fourth, we're going to briefly talk about the future of work. And there will be an opportunity where I'm going to ask you to answer some questions in the chat, or you can unmute and be a bit more of a conversation if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, again, I will check the chat later to answer some questions. Okay, so to tell this story, we have to go back to the foundations of African American labor. And unfortunately, that begins with the harsh reality that the American economy was constructed on the forced labor of enslaved Africans. This is just a fact. And there are historians like Dr. Edward Baptist, who wrote in his book, The Half Was Never Been Told, that argued that slavery was not just a Southern institution, it was the foundation of American capitalism. And this was also echoed by Du Bois in the Reconstruction book. Black labor became the foundation stone not only of the Southern social structure, but of Northern manufacturing commerce as well. And the wealth that was generated by cotton, tobacco, sugar plantations, that benefited not just the plantation owners, that also benefited Northern banks, insurance companies, and global markets. But there is an essential aspect of that time period that often goes unmentioned. Despite the heinous acts and the legal and social barriers that they faced, enslaved Africans were more than just laborers. They were innovators who found ways to adapt and thrive under oppressive circumstances. They brought with them significant technological knowledge from their homeland, which included, expertise in plant cultivation, building technology, pottery making, and, maritime skills. And although they were, limited from getting the credit that they were due for the things they were doing, there were things that were used back then that even now we are still benefiting from. So just to recap, beyond their roles as laborers, they were blacksmiths, they were carpenters, they were cooks, they were midwives, they were engineers. They had these skills that they passed down, and sometimes often in secret. And I'm not just talking about literacy as some of us may have learned growing up. It wasn't just where they were being told not to teach other people how to read, or they were also being told that their expertise was not something that they deserved. But instead, they were teaching other people not just how to make fish, but also how to fish. So in response to their circumstances, what ended up happening was that they were able to create these underground communities and economies. They became inventors. They became innovators. You're talking about, if you spend any time looking at Black history, there are so many like inventions that were invented by people of color, by African Americans, that have literally changed and made our lives easier. You can think about the carbon filament that was created by Lewis Latimer. That's in every light bulb. So, without the resilience that was shown during these time periods, the American economy and even the cultural landscape of America would not be what it is today. So that takes us to lesson one: resilience and adversity. All right. In spite of the things that these individuals went through, they were able to make something out of nothing. They were able to create communities like Black Wall Street. They were able to, become entrepreneurs. They were able to become self-made millionaires like Madam C.J. Walker. These are individuals who were able to take what they were going through and turn that into fuel to do some really incredible things. So how should we apply that in our current workforce? Well, we need to face everything that we're dealing with, especially with right in the here and now, with resilience. We need to look at failures as learning opportunities, and we need to recognize and harness our ability to innovate and face these challenges head on. So I want you to take a second and I want you to think about your own career and think about, how do you respond to obstacles? When doors close, do you stop? Do you put your head underneath your pillow and weep about it? Or do you find a way around it? Do you kick down the door and say, no, this opportunity is for me? Like, what does your resilience cycle look like? I find another door to go into. Exactly. Exactly. Resilience means you got to turn those setbacks into stepping stones. So next, we're going to transition to the fight for workplace rights. So after the end of slavery, and as sharecropping began, in the early 1900s, millions of African Americans left the South in what's called the Great Migration, and they were moving to northern cities to find better jobs, even though racism followed them. The same Jim Crow South policies that you're dealing with, they just had other names up north. They were barred from certain jobs, barred from, certain schools, and barred from, or given lower wages than individuals that are of different colors that were doing the same job. And many of them were hired last and fired first when those economic downturns hit. Does that sound familiar? So it got better, but it took people coming together and being strategic to raise a voice. Um, this picture that you see right here is the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. Now, if you're not familiar with porters are individuals who ran the rail cars. All right. So in 1925, they were the first major black labor union in the United States, and they were founded by the man you see in the corner, A. Philip Randolph. Now he's important for another reason, and I'll tell you in a second. But he found this labor union because he felt that they needed a entity. Oh, y'all featured him this month on Teams. That's cool. They needed an entity that would be able to champion fair wages, that would champion dignity for African Americans, that would champion equal treatment for workers. And their efforts as a whole contributed to, pieces of legislations and executive orders that prohibited racial discrimination in the defense industry during World War II. So one of the lessons, and I'm going to talk about here, is just the power of our voice when we come together on the same page. So additionally, it wasn't just for the porters that his work, came that was important. It expanded way beyond labor rights. The BSCP were also instrumental in bringing in the issues of fair employment, better wages, workplace protections, and they were the first to put that on the national agenda. And then as the modern civil rights movement gained traction in the 1950s, the Porters played an active and supportive role. E.D. Nixon, who was a leader in the Porters and a local NAACP official, was instrumental in organizing the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 and 1956. And additionally, Randolph also was the driving force behind the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And I want to say that again. He was a driving force behind the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And some people forget that that's what that the I Have a Dream speech was about. It was about jobs and freedom. It wasn't just about, the it wasn't just about like bringing our differences, putting our differences aside. It was about using our collective power to push everybody forward. So, the movements that a few people started together was able to grow so big that they were able to occupy that whole space in Washington, to say we need fair economic opportunities, fair treatment for everybody in the workplace. So lesson two, we got to be advocates. We have to be advocates for workplace rights, but we also have to be advocates for those people who can't speak up for themselves. Because and without labor activism, we would not have minimum wage laws. We would not have overtime pay. We would not have workplace protections. Speaking up matters. And I know that we live in a time where, a lot of scary things are happening. DEI and the diverse equity, inclusion, and belonging are being attacked and being repelled when you have individuals who have benefited from those policies. And a lot of people are asking why, or people aren't speaking up and asking why. But when the reality is, wage disparity still exists. According to the Economic Policy Institute, Black workers still earn 20 to 25% less than white workers in similar positions. And with all this going on, somebody probably asking, well, how do we change this? Well, you have to know your worth. You have to know your rights. You have to negotiate salaries. You have to also teach other people to do the same. Because, like the ancestors of our past, we cannot gatekeep the keys to success. I'm going to say that again. We cannot gatekeep the keys to success. And as we are fighting for equity in the workplace and just in society as a whole, we have to support each other. We have to stay aware and we have to take action because what we do today is going to impact our future generations. So, to be an advocate is not just a historical concept, it's a responsibility that we carry forward. So, this takes me to the next lesson that's in relation to skill mastery. One of the significant labor transformations came during the Civil Rights Movement, and that was the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And that's, through the efforts of the Porters, banned help and other individuals that were fighting for civil rights, that banned workplace discrimination, but it didn't change access to jobs. So as a result, entrepreneurship, pushing education as a great equalizer, and skill building became the ways for African Americans to get ahead. So this is where, you would see Black-owned banks, insurance companies, newspapers. They weren't just, existing, they were thriving. There was people learning new skills, there was economic growth. The entire financial landscape of African Americans was changing. And after the civil rights movement, like this shift started pushing African Americans from the agricultural, from the factory jobs into professional fields. And it offered them opportunities to leverage their education and skills to pursue aspirations that they may not have been able to had an opportunity for in the past. So, as some of you may have learned, after the Civil War, the 13th and 14th Amendments allowed Blacks to do a lot of things. But one of the things that you may not know is that that's where they were able to get patents. They were able to showcase themselves as inventors. And that entrepreneurial spirit led to, as I said earlier, those innovations is something that we use today. So when you think about the history of African American labor, you also have to think about the individuals that said, in spite of what I am experiencing, I'm still going to make something happen. We don't have Ebony magazine and Jet magazine without the Madam C.J. Walkers and the Granville Woods. We don't have Katherine Johnson and the Hidden Figures without Booker T. Washington and other individuals speaking up. So we have to make sure, and they had to learn that from somewhere. They had to refine those skills. They had to do for themselves. So like the ancestors that brought those skills from their homelands and they were teaching other people behind them, they had to master their skills, even in an environment where their talents were being overlooked. So in spite of limited access to formal education, in spite of financial constraints, in spite of racial discrimination and difficulty just protecting themselves, they were able to pave the way for future generations to build upon their legacy of innovation and excellence. And through their mastery of skills, we know that it's possible. It's like that because of them, we can. We know that. So the third lesson is the power of skill mastery. We have to prioritize developing our skill sets. We should be skill stacking, y'all. Those PDs and those LinkedIn learnings that you have access to, take them because you never know what skills you're going to need in a certain situation. You need to be a master of your craft, but don't be afraid to be a jack of all trades. Because though the quote is, the jack of all trades, master of none, it's actually better than just knowing one. Have that range because the more skills that you acquire, the more adaptable and more valuable you are to the workforce, but also the more valuable you are as a mentor, more valuable you are as a connector, the more valuable you are as a networker. And we need people that are going to have the skills to get into the spaces to be able to open the doors for others as we have this push for skills, I mean for STEM and automation and entrepreneur. They're going to have people that have the skills to teach people the way. I'm a business teacher, and I have students here every day that are looking for opportunities to learn from real world examples. In fact, the concept of skill mastery is a principle in my classroom. My students are not just learning from textbooks. No, they are learning from businesses that are coming in with their real world problems, with their actual pain points, and these students are learning how to solve them. But they don't learn how to master these skills without getting the opportunities. And those opportunities come from individuals such as yourselves that say, how can I help? So you have to be committed to the process of learning. You have to be committed to the process of mentoring. You have to seek out those leadership roles so, again, you can teach others how to do it. Because, again, we cannot gatekeep the keys to success. So as we get closer to the close of my presentation today, I want to talk about the future of work. So, and full transparency, this picture was created by AI because that's the world we live in now. We live in a world where AI and automation and chat GPT, these are terms that you are using probably daily now. And as someone, and I said this earlier in the call, as someone who worked in IT back from 2016 to 2018, we weren't talking about this. We were barely talking about chatbots at that point. I was the chatbot for this company called Insight. I was the person that if you needed to get something, it popped up on the screen, and hey, thank you for reaching out to Insight. How can I help you? That was me. It was not some machine that's learning how to speak like me. And hasn't even been 10 years. So you can only imagine by 2030 what things are going to look like. So that's where we have to stay ahead of the curve. We have to look at the current trends and say, what is coming next? Especially African Americans, because here's the reality of the situation. Another one of those harsh truths. 23.1% of African American jobs that are currently had could be displaced by automation by 2030. This is the truth. But it doesn't just affect African Americans. 22.4% for whites, Asian Americans 21.7%. The reality is that we have to make sure that we are preparing our workforce for tomorrow. And that's something I try to do in my classroom. I try to make sure that they understand how to use AI, understand, aggregate data. They understand how to use the data to tell the story. We have to make sure that we are looking at the data to be able to tell the story of where we need to be. So we need to make sure that we are pushing our kids to tech. We are pushing our kids to go be leaders in these companies. We are pushing our workforce to learn about these skills. And I'm thinking about, it's making me think about that scene in, if you ever saw the movie Hidden Figures, where the ladies who were the original calculators, they were calculators. They ended up becoming the individuals that learned how to program the computers when other people struggled to figure out how to make that happen. And that's where you have to seize opportunities for adaptation. What you're doing today is not going to be the job that you're going to be doing tomorrow. In fact, some of you, and I hate to say it, your jobs today in 5 years may not exist. So you have to make sure you are seizing the opportunity to adapt and learn and grow so that you can continue defining the success that you desire. And for African Americans, that's also push can not, I understand that we're in a place where that gig economy is, it makes it easier for everybody to, quote, have a job, but you're an independent contractor. There's there's not stability in that. So we still have to push people to go to higher education. And I understand with federal funding shifting, that's a hard sell for some people, but it doesn't change the nature of what the economy is going to continue to do and what the workforce is going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for individuals who are educated. They're going to be looking for people who have the skills that have the highest skills and who are constantly practicing Kaizen and looking for opportunities to continuously improve. So while we are getting to a place where we have these different challenges, we still have to remember we have to be ready to adapt for whatever comes, because not just African Americans, but everybody that is in the workforce right now, we have to be in a position where we can thrive in the changing economy, regardless of what is thrown at us. And the key to success with adapting is that lifelong learning and being proactive. So, as I conclude and we reflect on the rich legacy of African American labor, we got to recognize that these lessons are not relics of the past. They are essential frameworks for the future. And whether it's in our personal lives or professional endeavors, that resilience, using adversity as fuel, the ability to be an advocate fighting for all of our worths, that skill mastery so we can build that economic power and staying ahead of things by adapting, those are going to allow us to be in a position where we are going to thrive. So we have to make sure that we don't forget that it's a we. Together, we have to honor the legacy of those that came before us. And we have to carry forward that spirit of determination, that resilience, that innovation. And we need to put ourselves in a position where we are building careers, communities in the future that reflects our shared commitment to equity and excellence. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this lovely presentation. I know that Sandy had to hop off, but he had a question about how you see events like, there's a planned economic blackout for Friday, and how would you compare that to sit-ins and things like that back during the 60s? Like,
Thank
what
you.
are your thoughts?
That's a great question, and thank you for the comments in the chat. Um, so I feel like with everything, there are modern takes on things that have happened because history happened in the past. Because history truly does repeat itself. And the one thing that I can say is that if if everybody that's impacted by these changing policies actually comes together and as one voice, then there will be an impact. Because it's one thing to post Operation Blackout on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and it's another thing to actually bring other people with you to do it.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the reality of a lot of failed movements is that there are not enough followers
Mhm.
who are willing to there are not enough quality leaders that are willing to put themselves out there, and then there's not enough followers to play the roles they need to get the movement started. So I do believe that they are spiritual successors of the sit-ins, but I
Mhm.
think without, you know, that like gross, large scale mobilization, the impact really won't be as much.
Agreed. Any other questions, comments? Don't let me be the only speaker.
Please, I promise I don't bite.
Nicolene, did you
Come
have
off.
anything? Oh,
I was like,
Sarah.
I can come off you. I'll ask. I'm never shy. Um, One, thank you so much for doing this. Nicolene and Brittany have been singing your praises, so I've been really excited for this. Um, I think a big thing, there are a lot of there are a lot of allies on the call, myself included. And so I think from that perspective, what are ways that we can be supportive? Like I know that you went through and talked about, like opening doors and encouraging, people to learn more and be a part of it. But like, what are other ways that, we, like someone like myself can be more supportive?
Okay. Thank you for your question. So the first thing I would say is that stay present. Don't like if you're going to be an ally, don't be an ally in name only. I mean, really be present in understanding the issues. Be present in having the conversations and asking the same way you did just now. Keep asking to understand because with that understanding comes action. And if you look at any of the like you look at the civil rights movement, you look at the sit-ins, you look at, this I'm thinking about the kids that got arrested. That was a mixed group of people. So we cannot move forward just as one group of people, as one, segment of people. It's got to be the whole society as a whole. But that also means recognizing that, you know what, it's not all, no, Black people are dealing with X, Y, and Z. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of this group because if it happens to us, if it happens to another minority group, we're going to want their support as well. And historically, when there were movements, like you think about the women's suffrage movement, originally it was Black men, Black women, white women in that movement. And when you get to the right to the vote, Black men got it first, and then you see a split.
Mhm.
So it's just important for us to use those lessons from the past to like inform how we operate, and we have to move forward together. So asking the questions, sharing the posts, providing individuals with platforms, having those uncomfortable conversations with relatives that may have dated or problematic views, like doing the scary stuff. Because at the end of the day, like you want to be able to look at yourself and say, I did what I could. So do what you can. Do
Good
what
That was
question,
great. Thank
sir.
you.
you
I agree.
intersectionality
Um,
has been
yeah.
part of the struggle for equity for sure.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Oh no, you're fine. There's another question from Michelle. She wants to know if you have any suggestions for someone like herself who hasn't had a lot of hands-on experience with AI. Are there any platforms or sites that she could go to, start learning more about that?
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. Michelle, thank you for the question. I'm gonna go ahead and give you the probably the easiest one that you may use. You don't even realize you use it. Grammarly.
Mhm.
So Grammarly has built-in AI tools now, where you can literally have things rewritten for you, or you can clean things up, and you can play with that just to get some basic prompting experience. Because a lot of the AI tools that are out there now really aren't effective or more than a search engine for a lot of people because they don't know how to effectively prompt.
Mhm.
And for me, I have a process for prompting, and I basically start with, if whatever tool you use. Let me answer the question directly. You have ChatGPT, you have Brisk, you have Gemini, you have Copilot through Microsoft. There are a lot that you could Google right now, right? And like I said, you could also use Grammarly. But when you're using AI, you want to make sure that you are effectively prompting, because otherwise it's just spitting out information that's not going to be useful to you. You want to first start by giving it a brain. So start with the background for the task. Start with what are they looking to do? So as an example, you could literally tell ChatGPT, uh, you are a speechwriter who focuses on African American labor in the history of African American labor in the United States. You are knowledgeable about the civil rights movement. You're knowledgeable about the Black labor movements. You are knowledgeable about the policies that were put in place to work towards workplace equity and equality. Boom, you've given it kind of a brain, and you're giving it some parameters. From there, then you prompt it. Then you say, using this background or using these additional parameters, do the thing. because what you have done now is you have turned this machine into the expert that you need. And I've used it for everything from like editing this presentation to planning coursework in my classroom. And in fact, we last week, and if you are in Louisville, I was on the news with my students at Shawnee. They were working on a marketing campaign for this local coffee shop called Black Coffee. If you haven't been to Louisville, come to Black Coffee.
That's
You'll love
good.
it. If you are in Louisville, go ahead and go to Black Coffee before they close today, to support a Black owned business. But the project that the marketing challenge that was created, I had help using AI to write the prompt and the rubric. So, I would say that if you haven't had a lot of hands-on experience with AI, don't be afraid of it. Embrace it because it's a tool that you can use to extend the thoughts that you have. I like to call it second brain because you still cannot replace human innovation and ingenuity. You cannot replace human inspiration and imagination. So as long as you are using the tools in a way you are being strategic and you are telling it what you want it to do, you'll be able to expand even the imagination that you have. You might come up with things you didn't even know were possible. So hopefully that answers your question, Michelle.
Any more questions? Oh, here comes Chet. I see one. Many large tech companies seem to be following the current political shift against DEI. Do you have any suggestions to prevent getting swept up in that and ways to maintain vigilance to support the goals of DEI in the current atmosphere? Really good question, Chet. Thank you.
Okay, so there are two ways. I like this question very
Mhm.
much because there's two ways to think about this. There are, well, change the name, change the name to mask it, just straight up, just, oh,
Mhm.
it's not DI anymore, it's IED. And you could be as silly as that if you want to, but if you really believe in the efforts, it's not going to matter what it's called. You're just going to do the work. So I know that there are universities who have shifted their DEI efforts to other colleges, but dissolved the office so that they could keep the federal funding, but they are still doing the work. So, the way that you stay vigilant is again just keeping them in the forefront. You don't have to say that it's equity. You can say this is the office of fairness and making sure everybody feels happy to be here. Like it's really important that even though there are people, because I'm gonna be honest, exactly. You said names in terminology get often co-opted and twisted. Exactly, because that's what has happened. See, DEI has now been labeled as something fearful, as if, and I guess it's really not fearful. It's like what affirmative action was exactly. Many people can't tell you what diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, are, right? But because someone told them that DE is bad because it costs someone I know a job, or it costs someone I know an opportunity, or it costs someone that I thought should be there an opportunity because someone else got the job. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that we can even have these conversations so I can be sitting in this room and being able to connect with the students that look like me to teach them how to navigate the world with people that don't look like them. And that's the piece that I feel like people who they miss it. It may not be for you. It's okay, but it is for somebody who's not going to get the same opportunities that you were giving at birth. And I understand we can really say that this is a class conversation in a lot of different ways because it's the rich versus the poor, and you have poor individuals that are like, well, I grew up poor and I should get opportunities. Cool, you're not wrong. And also, there are people who are double dipping in the struggle Olympics because of the color of their skin and where they grew up. Oh, and then we throw in class. So we have to continue these conversations, and we have to have people who are willing to put themselves out there without fear to say these conversations have to happen. These efforts have to happen. These policies have to happen because, even something like affirmative action, it wasn't just people of color that benefited from that. That was affirmative action also made sure that, and I'm going to say it as cleanly as possible, that there were women in conversations in the boardroom as well. Make sure there were women applicants that were, being looked at. The affirmative action gets us the Rooney Rule in NFL, even if sometimes it's just to check the box. But the reality is, a lot of these policies benefit so many different people, and you think about I'm thinking about the UNC, the North Carolina admissions court case that happened a little while ago, with where you had the Asian population of individuals wanting affirmative active action to be repelled because they thought that it was creating unfair situation for them. The enrollment has gone down for that population of people. So what does that tell you? You can't be your own worst enemy just because things aren't 100% fair to you. Because what's going to happen is you're going to strip away everything, and then the people who truly have the power, money, and influence to do what they want are going to take full advantage of the situation. And then we're going to be in a situation where every other day the world feels like it's different and on fire. And that's a scary place to live in. We're already dealing with so much. We're dealing with so much instability just because we don't know what's going to be the next pin stroke. And yes, I understand that that was coded, but this is just the truth. This is the world that we live in right now. When you can work in a country where you can get an email on a Friday that says you need to tell us why your job matters, and you have to respond by Monday. This is the world that we live in, y'all. And I'm not saying that to be fearful. I'm saying that so that you can be informed to say, I need to know what's going on, what's happening to my people, what's happening to the people that I care about, and even what's happening to the people that I don't. Because if we are not working together and we are not mobilizing together, we're putting ourselves in a position that they may not become that when they come for me, there's not going to be anybody there to come to help me.
Great point. I do have a question.
Sure.
um, the fear of retribution is real. I know that there are rules in place and laws to protect individuals to some extent, but what would you say to someone who still has that fear of speaking up or advocating or against anything that they see happening in their workplace because of fear of this economy, you can't afford to lose your job? What would you say to someone who's having that fear?
That's fair.
Mhm,
That's fair.
mhm,
It's a very scary time, and I'm not going to say be like if your heart does not is your if your fear and your heart are not on the same page, then you have to find another way to rectify that, to make sure that you are being true to yourself. But there are different ways other than just being the drum major, the loud person, to that you can do it in how you're coaching people. You could do it in the conversations that you're having behind the scenes. You can do that in, there's a book called we can't talk about that at work. You can do that in leading book sessions. There are ways to do it a little more subtly if you are afraid of ramifications. But that's the reality why we have to have these policies, so that when people do speak up for the truths and the realities that are actually happening, that they don't fear losing their jobs. So there are going to have to be some people who are going to have to be the martyrs. They're going to have to be the people that speak up. But if that's not you, that is okay. But do what you can. You may not feel like you have a lot of power, but you still have some. And some power is better than nothing. So do what you can, something small, something large, whatever, but don't let that urge, don't let that gut feeling go nowhere. Do something.
Love that response. Thank you so much. I know it's almost 1:20, so we want to respect your time, Reginald. I know you have
I'm good.
students.
I'm good for another 12 minutes. If
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You do have you're on your planning period. So,
yes, I
um,
am.
Any other questions, comments? This has been a really good conversation, and
Mhm.
I'm just glad we were able to have it here today, and be able to share it, with those who didn't make it. But any other questions, comments? Good conversation.
Thank y'all for the questions. Honestly, like I'm always nervous when I do presentations because I don't know if it's going to be a crickets type of crowd, and I really
Mhm.
appreciate the unmuting and the comments and the questions because I think that that's where the the actual takeaways in the conversation happen
Mhm.
because anybody can as they call it in education can participate in a sit and get, but when you're engaging in a dialogue, it's where it makes it more meaningful.
Right.
Indeed.
All right, no more questions. This has been awesome. Oh,
Kristen, you're muted.
Kristen, I see
Sorry, you
Kristen.
can't. Sorry, you couldn't hear me. I do have a question for you. Are there any specific resources, kind of going back to what Sarah was asking, as allies that we could read that might help with some of these, the pieces that you had spoken about to delve a little bit further?
So off the top of my head, because I'm actually so Jefferson County Public Schools also has a diversity, equity, and poverty office. They have this role called the racial equity envoy, which I am for my school, and they have resources for anti-racism resources. What I can do is I can gather some of those and get them sent over to Brittany and send them over because like they tell us in the session, if you don't have an exact answer, you don't have to try to pull it out of your pocket. Just find some get to the people who will be able to answer that question, get those resources out there. So
Yeah.
that's how I'm going to defer there. But I will say, read up like there. You can go to Google Scholar and you can start reading up on racial equity. You can Google.
Okay.
You can look up on equity in African American labor. There's like Google is such a powerful tool. Additionally, you could even go on a AI and just start asking like I want to have a conversation about this. Can you role play being an expert on this? And I want to ask all the questions that I'd be afraid to ask a person in person. Like that is a tool that you could use.
I
And
never thought of that. That's awesome.
um, a lot of the fear with having these conversations is the fear of being labeled or being judged. So we have tools now where you can get those scary questions and those scary biases out in front of you and explore it. If you can use AI to do an entire therapy plan or grocery budgeting plan for 30 days, you can take the time to do some introspective work with it.
Thank
Again, I
you. That's awesome.
question. I know you were probably looking for something a little more.
No, not at all. That's, I mean, I've never thought of doing something like that. So that right there is a resource, and I don't even need the list because I can ask Chat GPT.
There you go. Well, that's one. And thank you. So I want to read this. I want to read this question real quick because I do kind of want to address this one. Um,
Oh, that's a good one.
this is really good. Okay. So I is it Alicia? Alicia, I want to make sure I'm saying your name right.
It's Alicia. That's okay.
See, that's why I asked. That's why I asked. So thank you for that question. First off, your opinion does matter. And in fact, um, as a non-person of color, it's important for you to have conversations with people of color in general, because there's something called there's two words or phrases. There is echo chamber, and then there's anchoring bias. Your echo chamber, if you are unaware, so if I'm explaining something to you, you already know, please cut me off. But your echo chamber is basically though it's like a tunnel that you go in that you echo the thoughts and biases and associations that you will get from your normal socialized group, so the people that you see every day, right? And through your echo chamber, um, you're gonna have certain biases that you're going to be anchored towards. So Your close friend probably had an echo chamber that said at some point in time to be helped is somehow to be seen as inferior. To be given a handout is somehow asking for special treatment, as you said. And in reality, is that like equality is making sure that everything is equal, but equity is recognizing that everything isn't fair. And the reality of the situation is having Black History Month, having the Black Lives Matter movement is about equity. It's about recognizing that the world is not fair. But if you have the power to do something about it, then you should. Because again, and I've said this multiple times, while he as an individual might think that, doesn't agree with Black History Month, Black Lives Matter movement, if somebody were to come for him, they wouldn't care about his open-mindedness and, by the bootstraps mindset. They're going to see him as a person of color, and that's it. So we cannot forget that even though we want to live in a colorblind society, we all have different levels of melanin. That's just the reality of it is. You cannot go through life without seeing color unless you are truly colorblind. And even still, you see different shades of grays and other colors. But that's the reality of life. To be colorblind is to intentionally put your head in the sand and ignore the realities of people's varied life experiences. So he is entitled to his opinion, same as yours. But that does not mean that his opinion is law. Does not mean that my opinion is law. I think that having the meaningful conversation is like asking him about where that comes from, asking him, what does he base his beliefs off of? Is there some sort of experience that he had growing up? Like maybe he grew up in a situation where he did receive a lot of handouts when he was growing up, and he made fun of it, because of it. There's always some reason that people, excuse me, feel very strongly one way or another. And it usually comes from a place of feeling invalidated at some point in time. So to have a meaningful conversation with anybody, it starts with validating the feelings that the person has, whether or not you agree with them. And that doesn't mean saying they're right. That's just saying that there is an opportunity for us to have a conversation, but you have to be honest and truthful about where you're coming from without fear that you're being judged for feeling the way that you feel. And once you establish that realm of communication and understanding, there's where a meaningful conversation can happen. Sometimes just asking, why do you feel that way, is enough to get a meaningful conversation started. So I hope that helped a little bit.
Thanks. It did. I think sometimes when you're not a person of color, you don't want to step on someone else's toes. You feel like your opinion doesn't really hold as much. So you're a little afraid to just ask those questions. But at the end of the day, this is my friend. So, I should be able to have this conversation.
Have more faith in your friendship than, the level of fear that you have any sort of blowback for having a conversation. If anything, you lead in with hey, so I'm actually just trying to learn a little bit more. And that's the only place that I'm coming from. And I'm not coming from a place where I'm trying to make you feel a type of way or tell you that you're wrong. I just want to learn a little bit more about what makes you tick the way you tick. Exactly.
True friend will definitely understand.
Without judgment. I want to tell this quick story real quick, and then I think you'll be in a Bell Hill shortly. I remember when I worked for Fidelity, there was I don't know if y'all do polls there or not, where you walk in and there's like a question and you drop a little ball in and just like a little bit of interaction. I walked in before everything was set up, but there were two signs. And I'll give you the context. It was December. It was kind of cold outside, getting really close to Christmas. And I saw two signs. One said white, and the other one said colored. Now y'all pause. I saw somebody's eyes go up. That's exactly the response that I had. Like, excuse me? Because I'm smart enough, I understood that the context was Christmas lights. But I just saw white and colored in two bowls. I'm a student of history. That's extremely problematic. So I went to my direct supervisor and I just said, hey, listen, not trying to cause a stir, but here's what you have going right here. And if you weren't aware, because you have to make people aware. There is some historical context to the way that these two things are laid out. So you can put multicolored and people will know what you mean. I went to another guy and I was annoyed about the situation. And he's just like, I don't understand what the big deal is. I don't understand why that bothers you. And guess what? It was not my responsibility to educate him of why he should care, but I did. And he didn't leave with any sort of understanding still. He still stayed in his place, but you can't save everybody. And at the end of the day, when you try to have these conversations with people, understand that some people you cannot save, some people you cannot convince to see things the way that you see. But at the end of the day, if you have mutual respect and going back to that piece of not valid, making sure that you're not validating people, then relationships will persevere. I've spoken to that person, I think, a couple of times since that experience. But the reality of the situation is that was just a reminder of the reality of the situation. And the reality is we live in a world of people who are different and diverse in their backgrounds, diverse in their perspectives, diverse in their ideologies. And that's why we have to make sure we understand why people think the way that they think, because the people that we don't know how they're moving are the ones that are eventually going to be able to be making decisions. And we want to know that the people that are making decisions for us are moving in a way that's trying to protect as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's a perfect place to end our conversation today. Thank you so much for having this conversation and leading with us. That presentation was amazing. Waystar, I will be sharing that recording and presentation with you all before I'm on PTO Friday, so before tomorrow's over with. If you all have any other questions, any other comments, feel free to let me know and I will pass those on. We are looking for some help with our future months, so I will drop all of that in the chat as well. And, if you're not a member of BIPAC or if you're a member of other affinity groups, please feel free to share that with your team so we can get some help for our future planning this year. But I do want to thank everyone for coming and you all have a great day. And I will be in touch with you soon about any follow-ups. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.